Good evening, everybody. Hope you've had a fantastic Tuesday today. My name is Sensei Bronson Long. This is my instructor, Master Autry.
Hey guys, how you doing?
How are you today, sir?
Good, sir. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine.
Good.
What a beautiful day.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous
Absolutely.
weather.
Been out in it all day, me and Ms. Autry.
Yes, sir. Can't get enough of it. Just loving it. So I missed you guys last week. I wasn't able to make it.
Yeah.
Sadly, what a tragedy.
I had three people say they were disappointed.
Yeah,
I
I'm one
wanted
of
to be
them.
300. Yeah, I was the other one.
Yeah, this work was a little crazy last week, so hopefully that doesn't become a trend or
Yeah,
something.
I'm sure it won't be.
Yeah, but guys, thanks so much for coming in and hanging out with us today. Sir, I've been training with you for a long time. You've been my martial arts instructor since I was 15 years old. I'm now 28.
Wow.
Grown up in life a little bit, and it's a pleasure now that I can be able to sit next to you and get more than just wisdom in martial arts, but I get to pick your brain about life and learn some things. And so this podcast is more than just our walk in martial arts together, but more importantly, our walk through life. Yeah. And every week we come up with different topics. We go back and forth. And this week was my week. Last week was my week. Yeah. We're going to pick up where we left off.
Fast forward to this week.
Yes. And so my topic this week is balance. So I've learned, or at least I've noticed and experienced in life, that things are constantly changing. Never fails. Prices change, presidents change, jobs change, and everything that you can think of, from the most nuanced thing to the grandest thing in your life, something is always changing. And what it seems like to me is, and correct me if I'm wrong, what it seems like to me is that I have to change myself, change the way that I do things to adapt to the world in order for me to maintain balance. Recently, I had a daughter about 4 months ago now, and man, you talk about having to change some things around.
Daily.
Yes.
Every day you got to change.
Yes, because she's constantly changing, The first 2 weeks, she didn't do much.
Right.
She just kind of sat there and looked cute and just did her own thing. And now she's, making all sorts of noises, and she's realizes, she can get attention if she makes certain sounds, And she's getting, older every single day. And as she continues to age, I'm going to have to change even more,
Yeah.
Eventually we'll have school and everything else. And so my question to you is, how in your life have you found the best way it is to achieve balance when the world around you is constantly changing?
Wow. Well, first thing for me, and like I say, I'm strong in prayer. That's the first thing. I say my prayers in the morning, like waking up early, and I go down the hall with lights coming through the door, and I try to say my prayers in the morning. And it just seems like, for me here lately, so many people that we know, me and Ms. Autry and stuff, and you too, are just not doing well. A lot of sickness and stuff, and that's a change too. And that's a change that tugs at your heart. It really does. I mean, sometimes you lay in bed at night and you think about, buddy up the street, or your friends down the street, or somebody that you know are sick or having hard times. That's hard, because that changes your routine, because it puts a little worry on you. So that's one kind of change. Another change is, and this is going to happen to you.
Okay.
Let me give you a scenario.
All right.
You got a little girl, 4 months old. Let's say she's in the first grade. She's been in the first grade for 3 days. Everything's running smooth. You, your wife, your baby, it couldn't be any better. So you go to tuck her in, right? Honey, I love you. I tuck you in, and she's got these big old alligator tears coming down her face, just crying. Daddy, I hate school. I've been there 3 days. I don't want to ever go back. So the first thing you do, you say, well, to yourself, well, you got to go to school, but she don't understand that. You got to make it happy for her and fix it, because you're the dad. You got to fix it. So what happens is, you say, you know what? Let's do this. Tuesday, and this is on a Tuesday night. So Tuesday nights, we're doing these great podcasts.
Right.
So you're busy, and then you go and cook dinner. But you tell your little girl, you say, honey, tomorrow morning we'll get up 30 minutes early, and I'm going to take you to Starbucks. And you and I are going to have hot chocolate in the morning.
Cool.
So now she's looking forward to that. She's forgetting about everything else. So you don't realize, but you just made a major change for that 30 minutes, because you're working late. You're doing the podcast on Tuesdays, and your wife's cooking dinner, and you got to do the dishes and try to get to bed early. It's a lot of change. So you go in the bedroom, you tell your wife, like I just told my daughter that I want to get up and take her to Starbucks. She's like, well, that's our Tuesday night's our night. So what she starts doing, your wife will be like, you know what, let's do this. I'll just stop at Chick-fil-A, I'll grab some sandwiches, and we'll just eat quick and get to bed early. So everything changes just like that,
Wow.
right?
Solid.
It is. That's what's going to happen. It's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
But, everybody changes over those tears and pleasing that little girl, which is nothing. That's an easy change.
Wow,
You know?
true, yeah.
But you were going to do that. So we're constantly making changes. And that's happened to me and Miss Autry and a bunch of times with our little daughter. But that's what's going to happen.
Wow.
So we start making adjustments or different changes without even before it starts even happens,
Wow.
So,
That's incredible to even think about, to be honest with you. Because like you said, I feel like that's a relatively, in the grand scheme of everything
Absolutely.
that could go wrong, that's a relatively simple problem to have. She just doesn't like school. But it's something as small as that can make such a grand change between your whole afternoon. That's every single week you're going to do that now.
and it'll be fun for you.
Of course it will.
I know our daughter was 12, I think 12 or 13, and I used to take her to the Olive Garden. Every Wednesday we'd go and eat lunch. Every Wednesday. She wanted to sit at the bar because the seats were high. So we'd sit up there and she'd get her little toasted raviolis and pasta or something. So we'd get there and we'd eat there and we'd have a little daughter-daddy day.
That's cool.
Every Wednesday we did that for, I guess, maybe a year and a half. Every Wednesday.
That's so
That was
cool.
fun. That was cool, But you learn a lot. But there's a lot of changes.
Yes,
It
sir.
is. How about you?
Well, I love that actually, and I was telling you today. So, happy birthday, Connor! Yesterday was her birthday. That's my wife, and so today
Happy birthday, Connor.
I got to spend a little bit of time with the baby one-on-one. So we scrounged together some gift cards and everything, and we put Connor had a massage and a facial today, and so this was my first time actually since the baby's been born, since I've had the opportunity to just be with her. Nobody else around, no in-laws, no grandparents, no mama, just me and
Nice,
the baby.
isn't it?
Oh, sir, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. Just to walk her around Walmart and just kind of peek into her little car seat, say hey to her, it's just amazing. And I can't lie to you, I went to go pick up Connor. We were about 15 minutes early to get her. And right there in Matthews next to the Hand and Stone, there's a little spot called Andy's. They've got little milkshakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wanted so bad to get her some ice cream, but she's got no teeth. She's got, I just wanted to go sit outside in the sun with her and do all those things, you do. But, that's something that is also a change as well, is that, when you're a young guy, you don't think about that type of stuff. You think, oh, well, one day I'll have kids, I'll have a boy, I'll teach him karate, do some rough, tough type of stuff.
Right.
When the doctor said it's a girl, I was like, oh, no.
We're both on the board at the beginning.
Yes. It's
Third generation of ASOC.
Yes, exactly. Yes, third generation of ASOC. And all I ever had, I have a sister and everything, but I had a lot of brothers,
Right.
a lot of nephews and boy cousins and stuff. And so, I changed boy diapers. I've been around a bunch of boy stuff. And I when the doctor said girl, we talk about God a lot on here. I was like, well, why? I was like, I'm not going to do a good job at this. I'm not prepared for this.
You're not know me by now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the candidate, But it's not a good idea. So that was one of those things that, but actually, I really, really like it. It's you think about things a little bit differently, and I'm sure that will also change as well.
Yeah.
There's always going to be change with that.
Excuse me.
As she gets older and her, she changes, her mind changes, her body changes, and we'll have all sorts of new things that I'm going to have to adjust to as we get older. The more you think about it, it's just more little nuanced things that you'd never consider until you get into the scenario. She may have an allergy to something.
Sure.
Connor's allergic to celery, of all things. So we can't have really good soup broth. You know what I mean? That makes a big change on like a Super Bowl Sunday or something, So there's all sorts of changes out there. There's a Connor in the chat there. She says, you did what? I didn't get her any ice cream. I just wanted to.
We just thought about it.
Yeah, just thought about it a lot, but it didn't happen.
So what happens, and this will happen also. I've had students come in and say, look, sir, I'm going to have to quit martial arts. Mm-hmm. Because I just can't fit it in. Everything's changing in my life. I just can't fit it in. And the first thing I do is go shut the door and say, look, we'll figure this out.
Don't leave.
You can't go nowhere. I've only got 14 students without you. So anyway, there will be coming to you, and you'll get that a lot.
Yes.
Can you help me make a plan? And I'm like, gosh, and I always say, back to the beginning, what would you do? Well, I would change this, this, and this. I would say, that's what I would do. So thank you for doing that.
Yes.
They do it themselves most of the time. Yeah.
That's I have a student right now. He's either just now turning 16 or is about to turn 16, and I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing ever because he's a brown belt now, and so he's got a couple years to go, and he'll end up testing for his black belt. But I every day I see him come into class, he's just not getting to a point where he's starting to teach a little bit. I see him, he's working with a green belt the other day, and I was listening to him explain something to the green belt, and he explained that perfectly to a green belt. Told him where to put his hands. It wasn't too much information. He knew what he was talking about. I was really, really impressed with him. And then it hit me. It's like, oh man, he's gonna get a car, job, and a girlfriend soon, and I'm never gonna see him again. He's gonna be gone.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think he explained it different than you did? What do you think causes that? I'll tell you my opinion in a minute.
Okay, this may come off a little on. This may sound like as if I have an ego when I say this, but I don't. But it's going to sound like this.
Yeah.
You always. I'll use words that you use. You turn on the Weather Channel, and the guy on the TV is telling you about the humidity and the cold fronts, and the air comes in this way, in this direction. He's got all this knowledge, and he really understands where the storm is coming from, or where this beautiful weather's coming from. And he looks at it and he explains to you all this information. But the brown belt, he doesn't know all of that. He doesn't know the ins and outs and the dynamics of it all. So to him, it's just like, man, there's clouds in the sky. It's going to rain. It's very simple. And so he was able to explain to the green belt in a very, very simple way. He didn't give too much. He didn't give too little. He just gave exactly what was necessary, and there it was. Whereas myself, I'm still so fascinated with martial arts.
Yeah.
After all these years, I still just can't get enough of it. And as I'm teaching, I'm learning as I teach too. I start to pick things out and see things, and all these little details and stuff that make up a full picture. And so I probably would have given a little too much or spoken a little too much to the green belt.
My thought is it's just a different perspective. Bottom line, you can tell 5 people to read a book.
Okay.
The same book, it can be just 5 pages long. I want you to read it and get in a room by themselves and tell this group, and have one at a time come in, what the book was about. All 5 of them will give you a different opinion or a different story.
Right.
It might be a giant ant went up a hill. They might say, well, this ant went up a hill. This other guy says, man, this jumbo ant went up this hill and he had these bushes. The next person might not even mention that.
Right.
It's just a different perspective. We all have a mindset. I don't care what you do in life. That's the way I feel about most people that do anything, really. You have a mindset when you're doing something so long. You're just kind of like this, tunnel vision. And it might be broad, but you still got a mindset. And your mindset's getting there. It's getting broader. But the simple mindset sometimes are the best.
Yes, sir.
People, you can go into a bakery and get this big old fancy cake, all this icing all over it and designs all over it. Hey, let me have a honey bun. It tastes just as good. It's simple. It's sugar and icing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's all it is. So sometimes simple is better.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes we, as instructors or as teachers or whatever, we go too much. Back when I was in school, the best teachers were the simple ones.
Right. Very true.
And that's what I get from that. I just think it's the less is more. Like we always talk about in techniques, less is more.
Yes,
right?
sir. That's exactly right. It's very, very true. I guess maybe that's something that you can apply to tonight's subject as well, is that I don't know if you've done this in your life or not. I certainly have. When one thing changes, a couple years ago, the major highway going up and down here had a lot of reconstruction to it, the Independence. And that was a big change for everybody.
Sure.
When things like that happen in your life, and it can be the road or whatever, a lot of times when I say we, I mean me, I overreact to that stuff. Let's say a random bill comes in you weren't expecting, or something hits your pockets a little harder than expected. And what you think now is, I got to cut back on everything. Stop the presses, turn the lights off, light the candles.
Panic sets in.
Yes, it's panic. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's
Mild panic.
Yes. Yeah. Light the candles, cut the lights off. It's ramen noodles for the next month.
Cut that air conditioner off.
Exactly. You start cutting back on everything. And it might not actually even be necessary, but perhaps it's something that we do. Is less is more in a lot of cases, because I don't know if I'm even helping myself out in that scenario. When there's just a little bit of change and I overreact with all this extra change to fix it, I I might even be making the scenario worse on myself, just, putting myself in the wrong mentality, putting stress on the family. And everybody else you get into contact with kind of picks up on that. Your other coworkers
Right.
and everyone else picks up on that stressed out type of, I'd say energy or vibe, but that's
Right.
what it is, You're acting some type of way. So do you think there's something to that in life when there's change? Sometimes less is more when you react to something?
I think when we react like that, most of the time it's somebody that's kind of a go-getter anyway. You're kind of a fast-paced person.
Yes,
Even
sir.
though you're slow-paced, you're still fast-paced. You do this, or this, People that think a little slower, and I don't mean slow, but I mean they can be smart people, but
Right.
people that calm down and think sometimes, they take things, like they say, with a grain of salt most of the time that I find. I had a guy at the school. Man, this guy he was smart. He was a Harvard graduate, and he took martial arts from us, and just as smart as could be. I mean, he was so smart. He would use words I didn't even know what they were. I just yeah. He said, "You're master blah blah blah." Yeah, I got you. I'm with you on that one. I didn't know what he was saying.
Yes.
But yeah, people like that don't get as stressed because they think all the way through. I think you and I kind of think the same. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we kind of think the same. We got your school, whatever. We think, okay, this will happen, this will happen.
Right.
Sometimes I don't think far enough advance. I really don't, because we kind of live in the moment.
Sure.
And it's just kind of natural, I think,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good thing and a bad thing, really.
Right.
But yeah, this guy here, I mean, you couldn't rattle him for nothing. I mean, the building could be on fire, and airplanes crashing. They'd be like, yeah, well, the wind's going to blow that smoke over here because it's going 18 and a half miles
Right.
an hour. I'm like, man, he would never get upset over
That's
anything.
crazy.
But he's a good guy.
And that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe there is something to that, as well as your background and where you come from and everything like that. Because when you say it, I think perhaps maybe I am a little on the fast pace to things.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, sure.
It's not.
It has
It's
its
your
perks.
personality. Yeah, it does.
has its perks because we can spot an opportunity and strike.
Well, see, that's it.
It's one of those things. It's I don't know. Perhaps that is true. I need to actually let that thought rest on my brain for a while and think about that. Perhaps I'm just a fast-paced type of person there, because there are lots of things that have happened in life where you try to do it now. You want to get it. Let's just do it now. Let's just get it taken care of. And I think that maybe some of that comes from the time I was raised and the way that I was raised. You look at something, you're like, if I don't get it now, it might not be there tomorrow.
Right.
Let's just do this now.
But you're not that way with the technique. I wasn't either. I'll spend an hour. I'll
True.
spend 10 hours. I'll spend 5 months learning one technique.
Very
I
true.
don't want to rush through that. In fact, I want to go slower than anybody.
You're right.
Because I want to get it right.
Very
So
true.
that's the flip side of that.
Yeah.
Most people come in martial arts. I want to learn this technique. I want to learn this lock. I want to learn this choke or whatever. And I want to do it. But, I never was that way. And you're not either.
You're right.
I've seen you work one technique for a year.
Yes.
I've done the same thing. But that's because we want it.
Right.
We don't want to rush that because we want to learn it.
Right.
On the street is a little different. I don't have time for patience, as they
Yeah,
say.
right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Got somewhere to be and things to
Right.
do. Yeah, you're very right. Yeah. That's a very good point. Pool Mike chimes in. He says, if you can balance your time, you can balance your life. That's not a bad point there. You're right.
Speaking of smart people,
Oh, yeah.
Mike's,
Yeah.
he's a smart guy. By the way, we enjoyed lunch. Me and Ms. Autry went with him and his wife for lunch today, and we had a good time. Thank you, sir. That was fun.
That's awesome.
He's a smart guy. I would tease and stuff, but he's a pretty intelligent guy.
Yes, sir.
He really is. In fact, when I first met him, he was saying a few things. I was like, I told Ms. Autry, that guy's smart. I don't know how to draw smart people. I guess they think I need the help. But read that question again.
Sure. So
Please.
what he says is, if you can balance your time, you can balance your life. And I think he's on to something there. I once heard somebody say, I don't know if you know this about me, but I can juggle. And so, one thing that I learned about juggling is that it's all about rhythm, of course.
Right.
And, with rhythm comes in timing. And I heard somebody say one day, I don't know if this was on the radio or a preacher or a TED Talk, I have no idea where it came from. But I heard somebody say one day, in your life, you're constantly juggling new things. You're constantly moving things around. Some things are faster than others, and some things take longer than others. But the quote that I walked away with from that has stuck with me for a while is that A balance isn't doing everything at once. Balance is doing everything at the right time. You know, you're not trying to cram it all in at one time, but you do, like Paul Mike says here, you schedule things out when they're supposed to be taken care of. Once all that, it's like balancing a budget, right? You don't spend all your money at the same time,
Right.
but you balance it out.
Excuse me.
Electric
right.
bills due on the 1st,
Yeah.
and rent's due on the 15th, but you still balance the budget out, you know. So I think he's onto something.
First thing that comes to my mind when he says that is just mindset. I mean, it is time, but it's mindset. You have to be able to have a mindset to do that,
Yes.
go that direction. I mean, that's how I've done most of my life. You know, all my schools. I mean, I've had schools and I've had teaching morning classes, afternoon classes, night classes, and training and private lessons and stuff. And it was hard. It was hard. It was all just, you know, like I say, sometimes I'd work 14, 15 hours a day teaching. I'd come home, I was tired.
I bet.
I was wore out. But then again, the next day it was mindset. I'm not going to do quite that much today. I'm going to leave off this one and do this one. You know, sometimes you just have to have a mindset and say, hey, I don't need to do this. But it's hard because you
Yeah,
want to.
of course.
You know, it's like you want to get all this overtime in.
Yes.
While you can.
Right.
And I know it's good, but sometimes, like today, you spent the time with your baby. But that's a mindset. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the day off and spend time with her.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. So here's this may be a fun way to do this. I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a curveball. So this is, I'll present the question to both you and Paul Mike and anybody else that's listening. So let's say you're someone who has really taken the time to balance out your time. You got things scheduled out. You have a proper mindset. You're acting accordingly. You're leaving the house on time. You're getting to work on time. Soccer practice on time. Everything is moving smoothly. You got the right mindset and you're doing it correctly. I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm starting to get to that place. To me, I'm like, I feel like I'm an actual adult now. You know, I'm managing my time. I'm doing things. It took a while to get here, but we're doing all right.
Good job.
You know? But I don't have the wisdom that someone has that's been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years longer than I have. And so what really messes me up right now at this current stage in my life is the unexpected things that get in the way of my time. So let's say, I'm doing okay right now. I'm getting my time. Everything's right. I'm going to work. Everything's going smoothly. I get to my martial art classes. I'm teaching. Everything's all right. But there are some things that just show up unexpectedly and it messes everything up. So now it's not finding balance in the long term. I have to find balance right now. I know it's kind of a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, right. So here's just a basic scenario then. Everything's cool. We're running good. I've got everything balanced out. And on my way home one day, I don't know, I hit a deer.
Right.
You know, a deer comes through. Damage isn't super bad, but I need a new bumper and I need a new headlight. And, you know, there's just a little bit of maintenance that needs to be taken care of here. Well, my schedule, I've already got everything planned out. But now I have to put in time off of work because I got to take my car into the shop. I have to factor in the time I'm at the shop. I have to pay for the car while it's at the shop. Well, that means I got to do more work. Now I got to get more money to get the car taken care of. That's scenarios like that, you know?
Here's what I do. Excuse me. I'll try to look at the outcome of the balance. I really do. Like, you know, Ms. Alter, we had to go get a battery for a car today, and we went one place, they couldn't do it, and another place couldn't do it. So we're like, okay, we'll do this because I'll get back for the podcast today. And we had some stuff to do, and actually meet Mike for lunch. But you have to look at the outcome. That's what I try to do. What's the outcome of the balance? You know, if I do this, what would be? Or if I did this, what will it could be? You know, because I don't know. You know, we don't know what's going to happen to us. You know, it's like I tell people, things get a little bit out of balance, just a little bit. It's like if you have a little bit of your tire, your front end of your car, it's a little bit out of balance. It has just a little wobble. You get up to 30 miles an hour, it goes away, right?
Right. That's
So you're like,
true.
okay, it's pretty good. And then it starts getting a little worse, and then you just go faster and it balances itself out. And then one day you get it fixed, you're like, man, I didn't realize it was this bad out of balance.
Wow.
I did not realize it was this way. This is really was worse than I thought. And that's what happens in our life.
Very, very true. That's very, very true. You're right. It's a lot of times it's just little things like that that you can kind of overlook, and well, it's not that big of a deal. I've still got a roof over my head. I just
Exactly.
keep going. You know, just keep on going, keep pushing. Before you know it, you turn around, you got a big issue. That's very, very true. It's it's easier said than done, I think, to find balance, especially as a young man. When I was 18, 19, I just couldn't find it. And I remember.
Most guys can't.
No, sir.
It's rare.
Oh,
it's rare for some guys 25 years old can't.
Yes, sir.
I see guys get married at 22, 23, 24, 25. I mean, it's because their still mindset is their kid. They live at home. They can buy what they want to. They can go where they want to. And then they got a wife or even maybe a baby on the way or even a baby. Your mindset has to change.
Yes, sir.
It has to change,
It's a tricky thing.
Because you can't be first anymore.
Exactly, right.
That's a lot of times, well, you know what, man, I want this. No.
Right.
Your wife gets it. Your baby gets it.
That's right.
That's what happens.
That's right.
And when you start getting that imbalance, then everything else kind of falls into place, I think.
I'll take some words from you. So I was sitting with you. I think we met at a Dunkin' Donuts in the morning one day. And you had told me, you said, look, you've got a lot going on in your life right now. I don't know what you need to do, but there's something in your life. You're talking to me. You said, you have to say no to something, And those words have stuck with me forever, is that there's just sometimes, in order to maintain balance, you have to cut something out, And I think it's a great story about, that's the way you developed your martial arts system, is that you had all these things put together. And you always tell me that it really started to come together when I started to cut some things out.
Yeah, it's not what I added, it's what I took away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right, it's what you take away from it. And that's really where I started on that path to finding balance, was after you had that talk with me. You said, I don't know what's going on in your life, but you got to say no to something. Something you have to say no to.
I remember that.
And that's, you can only juggle so much,
Right.
I can only juggle 3 things, whether it's tennis balls, baseballs, whatever. I can't do 4, 5, 6, or 7.
Right.
And so if I want to get something going, get some type of rhythm in my life, I can't have 4. I got to go down to 3, Just a metaphor there. But that is, it's a very interesting thing, because there's something about seeing people who have been around for a while who seem to have this figured out, I look at you and I see, okay, he's got it figured out. He's got balance in his life, You can look at a couple other people out there who you look at, man, they got balance in their life. And I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, I'm on the way there, but I'm not quite there just yet. And I'm trying to find out the secret on when it happens and how it happens. When is that moment when you get balance? Because I'd like to be able to get my kids trained up and have them thinking about this stuff at a way earlier age than I was, so they can do better than what I did. So do you think there was ever a time, an age, a moment in your life where you looked at it and you were like, cool, I think I'm balanced now?
Honestly, not really.
Really?
Yeah. It's like somebody asks you, when did you find out that the sun was hot? I don't know. I don't know if I was, 16 years old, 12 years old. I don't know.
Right.
When did you learn 9 times 9 is 81? I don't know what day it was.
Right.
That kind of question is hard to answer.
I bet it is.
Now, I know when me and Ms. Ultra got married, we had some hard times, trying to do jobs and stuff, and that was hard. No matter what we tried, we couldn't get it balanced. Financially trying to do things, it was hard. And I was wanting to open a business, had 3 part-time jobs. She worked a couple of jobs. I mean, we've always done that. But really, we had balance, but it was chaos balance. I mean, we knew what we wanted to do or had to do. We did it, and it was balanced, but yet it wasn't smooth balance. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It's kind of weird, I guess.
No, that makes sense. But
as I got older, and the school started growing, and it was very blessed, and then it started getting better. You start getting students, because then I had a routine. And once you get that routine, that's what it is.
Yes, sir. It starts to develop the rhythm for you.
That's the rhythm, and that's your mindset, is keeping that routine going. And I don't want anything to change it.
Right.
That's what I told you the other day when that lady came in, and she didn't want her kid to put the shoes in there, and I let her go out the door because I didn't want to mess that routine up.
Wow.
And that's all that was.
Wow.
So I was keeping balance in my school. That's the same story.
That is the same story. Wow. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it,
Yes, sir.
Because things were going good, and I didn't want her. And I told you about the assistant instructor. I took that batch.
Right. That is so cool. Wow. Pool Mike says, when I get overwhelmed, it's faith, family, and then whatever time is left over gets attention. That's a good point. Yeah. When you look at what happens in your life, I guess sometimes you have to come down and find out what really matters, what really needs the time, what really needs the attention. All else is secondary.
That's my answer right there, too.
That's a really, really good
family.
answer.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
really good answer.
That's just the order it's got to be for me,
right?
Too.
Wow.
And people will say that. Not talking about Pull Mike, but people will say that, and they really don't mean it. I know Mike does, but other people will say, "Oh yeah, I'll do this and this," but they don't. They just say what they think you want them to hear.
Sure.
You know? But it doesn't work that way. You know?
Right.
But it's hard.
It is hard. It's not easy to do. So listening to you talk about routine and everything, and this is going to sound very martial arty, so excuse me for anyone who's not familiar with this type of stuff, but when I think about what you're talking about, getting a life and having everything routined and ready to go, I think of something like a still water. You're so still you can see your reflection off of it. And when one wrong thing comes in, whether it's shoes in a cubby or somebody does something wrong, patch on the wrong guy or whatever, you put a drop into that water and all of a sudden the whole thing starts to shift. Everything starts rippling. And even the reflection that you used to see of yourself starts to get out of whack. Everything starts to fall apart.
Let's take the same case scenario. You got that pond there that got that one ripple. You got a guy over there throwing a rock in, the guy over here throwing a rock in, the guy over there throwing a rock in, and the guy throwing a boulder in the middle.
Right.
And so what do?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's so out of rhythm. But you have to, it's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yes, sir.
That's what it is.
That's
you got to
very
take
true.
care. I've had, one time in the school, I had about 4 or 5 things going on. I came in, I told Ms. Autry, I was like, you know what? And I really didn't have any problems at our school. I mean, it was rare. We talk about it, but it was rare. I mean, I did this for 40 years.
Right.
I can only think a handful of times. But one time we were in there and I had, ladies spreading gossip. I had a couple of dads in there, trying to talk to parents, and had somebody, it was just like a little gossip column. And finally, I went in there and I said, you, and you, everybody else out. You stay after class.
Wow.
I'm going to talk to you. And I just sat him down and I said, look, it's going to stop, because I didn't know else how to do it.
Right.
If I was trying to be nice to him, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
If you like it here, stay here. If you don't, you're not under contract, you can leave, because I don't want all these problems. It's not me or the school, it's you guys causing problems. It's just like all this stuff going on, the chaos in the world.
Yes.
They're trying to start stuff, and I told 4 of them, actually 3 of them, to leave.
Wow.
If they didn't change,
Yes,
but
sir.
they said they were sorry and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just comes at one time.
Right.
And I had nobody to ask either.
Yeah, I can't imagine
See, I
that.
was young. I just called them in the office. I'm actually out there. And I said, hey, we're going to talk.
Right.
You know?
That's so funny. I guess that is one way to solve the problem. The people who are causing the ripples in the water throwing rocks, get them to stop throwing rocks. And ripple solved. Hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea.
Take the rocks away from them.
That's pretty smooth. Wow. Well, sir, it is now 8:03. That was a
Golly.
fast 30 minutes.
It was.
I tell you, I know I do appreciate this so much, because I get to learn so much from you
That's
doing
fun.
this stuff.
Well,
and
thank you.
I really appreciate Pool Mike and Connor coming in here and talking and
And
stuff.
Ben and Ben's dad, we want to say hey to you. Hope
Oh,
Ben's
yeah.
doing better.
Hey, Ben. Hope you guys are doing all right. But this is it's a humongous blessing to me. Be able to get in here and just have conversations like
We're having
this.
fun.
Absolutely.
And they don't know this. We're going to turn this off. We'll sit here for an hour and talk.
Absolutely. That's what we
More
do.
coffee, we'll talk.
That is so great. Well, guys, sir, is there anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, just thanks for everything. And you guys just keep watching, and we enjoy it. And we'll see you next week. Good Lord willing.
Sounds good.
All
All right,
right.
guys. Hope you have a great rest
Good night,
of your
guys.
evening. See you later.